Grace and peace, Rep C here. In this video, we are looking at how to identify, expose, and expel false teachers. And we're in the book of 2 Peter. We're in chapter 2. We're going to get the ending of chapter 2. We're going to finish up chapter 2 here in just a second. And so in 2 Peter 2, verses 10 through 22, Peter is describing and denouncing the false teachers. He is describing and he is denouncing the false teachers. And what are false teachers? False teachers are wolves in sheep's clothing, and their destruction is guaranteed. Peter shows us that they are wolves in sheep clothing. They come in, they creep in unaware. But he says their destruction is guaranteed. And what Peter is going to show us is that false teachers have identifiable character traits. False teachers have identifiable character traits. So I'm going to put that on the screen. False teachers. Hey, grace and peace, Brother Tony. Grace and peace. Grace and peace. Thank you for jumping in, brother. Thank you. 2 Peter. Again, always hit the like button, share, subscribe, let people know that we're on. It helps YouTube push the video out. And as always, if you feel led to donate $1 or $2 to the ministry, the Cash App is there. So, false teachers have identifiable character traits. And Peter is going to show us that these false teachers often engage. If you look at Peter and you look at Jude, there's something about outward sinful acts that we're going to see that false teachers have. And sin has an enslaving power. Sin enslaves, and these false teachers, they lead to sin. They lead people away from God. And he's contrasting this with what he wrote in chapter 1, verse 5 and 7, how we're supposed to have self-control, and we're adding all these things to us. You know, he talks about to your faith, add virtue of more excellence and knowledge, self-control, perseverance, godliness, brotherly kindness, love. Add all of those. And then he's contrasting that to what we see the characteristics, the character traits of these false teachers. So in verses 10, notice what he says here. In verse 10, he says, especially those who go after the flesh. It's sinful, it's carnal, in its corrupt lust, and despise authority. False teachers often hate authority. They don't like to be under authority. They want you under their authority. He says they're daring, they're bold, self-willed, they're arrogant. They do not tremble when they blaspheme glorious ones. So they're bold, they're arrogant. Verse 18, they speak out arrogant words of vanity, pride. They entice by sensual lust of the flesh. And that's why a lot of times false teachers, there's illicit sexual behavior and there's oppression of the poor. They're manipulating the poor. They're trying to get money out of them. And so one thing that we can take away from this passage is that there will always be non-Christians among genuine believers. There's always going to be these false people who are just there. Matthew 13 in the parables, Matthew chapter 7, Acts chapter 20 talks about there will be false Christians, false professing Christians in the mix. And then he goes on to talk about how, verse 17, there are springs. These are springs without water. There's no nourishment. Mist driven by a storm, for whom the black darkness has been kept. And then he goes on to talk about how they seduce people, the seduction of false teachers, the seduction of the false teachers. Verse 19, they promise freedom while they themselves are slaves of corruption. They're fleshy. They're proud. There's uncleanness about them. They're presumptuous. They're self-willed. And then here is the allure of the false teachers. Why do they attract so much? In verse 18 and 19, first, again, speaking out of arrogant words of vanity. Let me take that off and scroll down. Make this a little bit bigger. Verse 18, for speaking arrogant words of vanity, they entice sensual lust of the flesh, the sarkos, those who barely escape from the one who conducted themselves in error. So they apply, there's these arrogant words, they seduce you, they promise nourishment, but he says there's springs without water. For it would have been better if they had never known the way of righteousness, for them having known it to turn away from the holy command handed on to them. These false teachers, Peter is saying it is better that they had never even been saved, or they had never even appeared this way. But false teaching is dangerous. False teaching is dangerous. So Peter, again, in this last, especially chapter 2, he is saying, be cautious of the false teachers. They are dangerous. They are deceptive. They secretly introduce these destructive heresies he talked about in the earlier verses. And Peter says they are always going to be here. So we as believers have to always be on guard, because they are persistent. Their doctrine is deceptive. Their influence is alluring. Their motives are impure. They don't teach for pure motives. And their destination is destruction. Their destination is destruction. So I just wanted to end this here. We're ending this 2 Peter chapter 2. False teaching leads to immoral lives. Sin has enslaving power. There's seduction in the false teaching of the false teachers. We have to identify them, denounce them, kick them out. Over and over again in the New Testament, we're told to call out false teachers by name. And the only way to identify the false, unhealthy teaching is to ground yourself in the sound, healthy word of God. So I pray that this has been a blessing to you as we continue through this book of 2 Peter. And don't miss the next video, because we're getting into chapter 3 and we're getting into prophecy and the end times. So God bless you. God keep you. This is Rev C saying see you in the next video.